Although I don't quite understand the appeal of Marvel zombies, maybe except a few story arcs and episodes from the animated TV show, I must admit that Marvel's zombified superheroes and supervillains have taken the animated world by storm and created a cult status for itself. Among those few stories is Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness, where Ash Williams from the Evil Dead universe is thrown into a world of zombified super people, and it all gets so bad that in the end, he has to threaten the Necronomicon itself in a bid to seek its help, along with that of Deadites. Yep, so it's basically like saying that the Predators took help from the aliens, or Starlight siding with Homelander to defeat another bad guy. Now, if such a collaboration helps anyone is something that's explained at the end of the story and this video. But for now, let's explore the 5-issue miniseries. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. And now, let's begin. So, Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness is actually tied to several other comics from both Evil Dead as well as Marvel Zombies universes. So in the Army of Darkness storyline, there was a story titled The Death of Ash, where he sort of dies and reaches what seems to be heaven. Furthermore, in Marvel Zombies Return, the Sentry had also been sent into the afterlife by the Watcher, but he starts to consume everyone in sight, much like he did in the Thunderbolts movie. Of course, this does not sit well with many, and the Watcher once again transfers the Sentry and Ash to another reality, and this happens in Marvel Zombies Return. But soon, Ash comes across a prophecy, according to which an army of the dead will rise, and that this world would fall flat on its face. In other words, the army of the dead will take over Earth once and for all. But the Earth in concern here is not the regular Earth or either Marvel or Evil Dead universes. This is Earth 2149 from the Marvel universe. Here, Ash encounters a fight between Thunderball and Daredevil, but he fails to figure out which one is the good guy and which one's the bad guy. In fact, he was alien to the whole concept of superheroes. Now, as someone who has no idea about any of this, all he sees is that Daredevil was dressed like, well, he was dressed like a devil, complete with horns and all that. So Ash starts to believe that Daredevil was the bad guy instead of Thunderball and helps the latter escape, only to realize his folly later on from a newspaper. Next, he learns about the Earth's Mightiest from a newspaper and goes to meet them to seek some hell in his upcoming fight against the Army of the Dead. But he starts flirting with the women superheroes from the Avengers. Typical Ash. Naturally, the Avengers do not believe him, and after sustaining some of his banter and attitude, Wanda, aka the Scarlet Witch, transports him away. It was only now that Edwin Jarvis tells the team about some sort of a disturbance happening in the city, and the Avengers finally take the matter a bit more seriously, but to no avail. You see, it's not before long that the Avengers themselves get infected, and Ash comes across a few of them. If you think about it, he did try to warn them, but they had other plans in mind. Ash would have met the same fate had it not been for the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, who rescued him from there, but only because Colonel America had asked Spidey to do so. But soon, Colonel America also gets infected, and when Ash tries to narrate his story to Spider-Man, Colonel America bites the young superhero on his left shoulder. After this, Spidey drops Ash mid-flight and he falls to the ground, only to come face to face with some of the zombified Avengers. And that's where the first issue ends. But by now, Spider-Man realizes that Ash had been right all along and that he had to do something about the whole situation. And despite being bitten by Colonel America, Spider-Man's body was actually fighting off the infection, meaning he had not yet become the zombified version of himself. Meanwhile, the zombified Avengers wanted to eat Ash, but none of them could decide who was going to eat his brains, which is when Spider-Man showed up, telling him that he wanted to eat Ash. It was obviously a bluff, but the now-bad Avengers believed him, and Spidey takes Ash along with him. After the rescue, though, Spider-Man leaves Ash alone and goes to meet Aunt Mary and wife Mary Jane. It wasn't as much of a meeting as it was a welfare check. He needed to know that they had not succumbed to this new wave of zombies infection. The man has had it seriously enough in the past because of zombies. In fact, in one of the storylines, Peter ate his aunt. I think the comic was called Marvel Zombies' Dead Days, where he gives in to his zombification, loses himself completely, and ends up devouring the ones he loved and cared for more than himself. So seeing Peter actually caring for them now and fighting his infection is truly relieving and satisfying. Anyway, we then meet the Punisher, who gives Ash a bag full of spare weapons that he would need to kill the zombies. But then Kingpin shows up, along with the Owl and Hammerhead, all zombified of course, and Punisher shoots and kills them immediately. Furthermore, as the comic moves on, we see that a zombified Thunderball was trying to protect his zombified allies that collectively formed a supervillain organization called the Wrecking Crew. Well, they wrecked stuff. Anyway, so Punisher kills Thunderball as well, and meanwhile, Ash comes across the mutant Dazzler, and she takes him to meet with the Sorcerer Supreme, Doctor Strange. Now that Ash has reached Doctor Strange's headquarters, you can expect that the Deadites are not far behind. He's the go-to man for sorcery and probably the only one with the knowledge of the Necronomicon. You see, earlier, Ash had told Spidey that the only way to stop the Deadite invasion was through the Necronomicon. Furthermore, the Ash from Earth 2149 also decides to join the fray. He had managed to remain uninfected and joins hands with the Dazzler to fight the zombies. Unfortunately, though, this Ash gets killed by Howard the Duck, a zombified version of the Super Duck, of course. But Ash and Scarlet Witch kill this zombie, Howard the Duck. Unfortunately, though, Doctor Strange does not prove to be of much help. Scarlet Witch, Dazzler, and Ash turn Strange's mansion upside down and inside out to find the Necronomicon. But again, nothing is really found, and Ash believes that this ongoing zombie apocalypse is actually a Deadite invasion, so the only thing that could now stop it was the Necronomicon, the Book of the Dead. After getting disappointed at the mansion, all three of them travel to Latveria in the hope that the castle of Dr. Doom might have what they're looking for. But more strange stories and threats awaited them there. You see, Dr. Doom's castle itself was under attack from Reed Richards' Fantastic Four. Just that Reed intentionally turned his family and friend into zombies because he believed that the zombified life was the best and most efficient version of life. Oh, and all of this happened in the Dead Days comic arc. Anyway, the trio fights and struggles, managing to make their way into the castle, but Ash's stupidity and his typically idiotic behavior forces Dr. Doom to imprison Ash along with other survivors of the zombie apocalypse. Now, it would be absolutely disastrous to take Ash lightly. I mean, he is what he is, but he almost always has luck on his side. So he somehow manages to find Dr. Doom's Doombot armor and disguises himself as the great villain, only to roam around Doomstadt looking for the Necronomicon. While wandering through Doomstadt, Ash comes across the Enchantress, who seems like she wants to help. Since she was also held prisoner by Doom, Ash frees her and takes her to meet with his new friends, Dazzler and Scarlet Witch. But then the Enchantress drops the illusion and reveals that she had been infected already and was a zombie. She immediately bites off Dazzler's finger, thereby infecting her, after which Dr. Doom arrives and kills both infected women with his energy blast. But this causes an unintentional effect, and the rest of the zombies break into the castle, overwhelming it. Along with the rest of the zombies, the zombified Punisher also enters the castle and infects Scarlet Witch. Meanwhile, Reed Richards bites and infects Dr. Doom, but the latter was a powerful man and manages to escape. And much like Spider-Man, Dr. Doom also fights the infection back, long enough to help his people escape into an alternate universe altogether. So yeah, things were not looking good for anyone at this point, and anything could have happened. Finally, Ash manages to locate the Necronomicon, the one from Earth 2049. But you know what? This talking book reveals something that Ash does not like. So the book says that the zombie apocalypse, or the plague, could not be stopped since it can only stop Deadites, and zombies are not Deadites. The book also reveals that an army of the dead is bound to rise and the world would most definitely fall. But the zombie apocalypse and the Deadite army are not the same things, and neither do they have anything to do with each other, just that they were both happening at the same time. At this point, Ash was getting desperate to find a solution to the zombie plagues, and in his last-ditch attempt to find a way to get help from the book, he threatens its own survival and says that if it did not help, the zombies would eat the book itself, since it was made of flesh, and that's when the Necronomicon decides to help in any way possible. So Ash tells the book to raise the dead zombie victims as Deadites, who fight the undead zombies. Now this gives Ash and Dr. Doom enough time to transfer all survivors to a parallel world that would serve as a safe haven. On the other hand, the invading zombies infiltrate and attack Dr. Doom, who finds himself overpowered, but Ash manages to escape. The zombies finally find the Necronomicon, but they won't eat the book, because it's a book. However, Wolverine picks up the book and gives it to Hulk, who decides the book's pages would serve as toilet paper. In the end, it's revealed that Ash somehow managed to find his way to his own Earth where a Deadite invasion was about to happen, and the rest could be found in a storyline from the Ashes. Marvelous verdict. Should you give Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness a shot? Ash Williams somehow crashing into Marvel's zombie outbreak sounds like the kind of pitch that should fall apart on page 1. Instead, it works better than it has any right to. The Necronomicon dumps him into the Marvel Zombies timeline before the plague even starts, setting him against an undead sentry who wastes no time infecting the rest of the costumed crowd. Ash has one goal: track down the book and reverse the mess. The problem is, what's happening might not even be the Necronomicon's doing, and if he fails to figure it out, the plague will finish the job his old enemies never could. That setup could have gone sideways fast, especially after Marvel Zombies 5 leaned hard into slapstick and broad humor. Ash has always brought comedy with him, but here it doesn't tip into cartoon territory. The tone leans closer to the first run of Marvel Zombies. Mature, nasty, and self-aware without undercutting the horror. The jokes land, especially Ash's cracks about Marvel's roster of whack jobs, but the laughs don't smother the story. His banter with Punisher is the standout. Two guys too stubborn and too broken to get along, yet somehow hilarious together. Ash is clearly the center of attention, though he still bounces off a surprising number of Marvel characters. His interactions with women stay true to his usual sleazy confidence, which reads both ridiculous and exactly on brand. It's the kind of thing that would fall flat with another guest star, but makes sense because it's Ash. What's impressive is how seamless the fit feels. You could hand this comic to someone unfamiliar with either series, and you'd think Ash belonged here from the start. The tone swings equally between Evil Dead and Marvel Comics, with no clear seam where one franchise stops and the other begins. Another smart move was telling a new story rather than recycling old beats. The early issues already covered how the virus spread and why the world collapsed. This one rewinds to fill in gaps without retreading the same ground. The focus stays tight on Ash and his quest for the book, which keeps the momentum from sagging. We also finally get some detail on how the plague spread across the globe, expanding the mythology without bogging it down. The visuals shift again, with new artists bringing a more stylish, less gore-heavy approach. Sean Phillips still returns for chapters 4 and 5, but overall the tone is lighter on guts and heavier on design. It's not as bleak as earlier entries, but it definitely clears the bar set by the kid-friendly art of the last volume. The alternate covers, though, are the real treat. Each one plants Ash front and center alongside zombified Marvel icons, and they might be the strongest batch of covers the series has put out so far. Taken all together, Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness manages to balance tone, story, and character better than expected. It doesn't try to outdo the bleakness of the first run, or mimic the scattershot energy of later sequels. Instead, it gives Ash the spotlight, drops him into a collapsing world, and lets his mix of charm, idiocy, and determination carry the story. If you've kept up with the series this far, it's a worthy addition. If you're an Evil Dead fan who wants to see Ash annoy Marvel's heavy hitters while trying to save them, it's probably the most fun you'll find in this universe. Well, that was all in this one, guys. See you around. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.